tell them a little bit about where you went and what group you went with, and so we were blessed to participate in this mission trip, even though we didn't go. We were blessed because we prayed. We prayed for you and helped support you to go on that trip. But you go ahead.
So I went with a team by the name of Far Flung Tin Can. They are an organization that I don't know how deep I want to go with that, but so basically they started because this guy named Kyle Philippi, he actually went to Lee, where I'm at, and God laid on his heart to be a missionary, and he felt in his heart that he wanted to start this not just to be a typical missionary and go to like the places everywhere else goes, or the places that everyone goes, but he wanted to go to the places that are far flung, which is why it's in the name, and the places that no one would go to. And so he went on a trip similar to the trip I went on, just for Lee University, where he would get his credit. And on that trip, God laid on his heart to drop everything. So he dropped out of college, he quit his job, and he began to partner with churches to financially support him to be able to go throughout the world. And now it has been 7 or 8 years, and he has gone to literally he has an office, and he has a wall with all of the plane tickets and a map with all of the countries he's been to and like precise locations, and he's been like everywhere. And so basically Far Flung Air is the team that I went with, and they go on mission trips all throughout the year, all throughout the world. And where I went was located in Mozambique, which is a neighboring country to South Africa, which I also went to. And while we're over there, we went to a little village called by the name of Gumbani, which is close to the shore but not super close, and it's about 3 hours from Madagascar across the ocean. And I'll just leave it at that, because I think the other questions will help touch on more.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. And he's a student at Lee University, and you're going for discipleship. Okay, discipleship, and so he's taking a lot of theology classes, and so he's learning and growing, and so I always really enjoy it when he brings the word here at the church. Before I ask the first question, do y'all have any questions for him or anything? All right, I don't want to interrupt you. All right.
Sarah, will you guys move up one so we can see your picture?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great suggestion. Can y'all hear us?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
She just sees the top of your head.
Okay. I don't want to blind you there. So, the first question I have is, what misconceptions did you have, maybe about the country you went to, or maybe maybe about the mission, or about mission trips in general? Was there any misconceptions that you may have had?
That's a good question. And actually, there were misconceptions that I had. And one that I was pleasantly surprised by is that I had the misconception that Africa would be very hot. Like, very, very hot. Yeah. And little did I know, or the team, we got over there and it was very, very cold where we were at. They're going through their winter time because they're on the opposite side of the world. So it was like 40s, 50s, 30s. We'd wake up seeing our breath. It's very cold. A misconception I had as far as missions go, though, is I've gone on domestic mission trips with the church here, and something I always thought about with missions, and you typically hear, is like, with missions trips, you think you're going to help them, or you think you're going for them. But when I got there, like the second I got there, I realized this was not the case. And that mission trip, we helped them out with a lot that they really needed help with. But I feel like they really, really helped all of us spiritually. They helped us grow mentally, spiritually, physically, a lot of food. So that was just a huge misconception that I had going in, was that this mission trip would be merely to help these people, to get my credit for Lee, and my mind was changed, so, and my life was changed.
That's great. You know, you said that you're going on a lot of people have this conception that when you go on a mission trip, you're going to help them, and that's true, you are, but a lot of times it's going to do something in your heart that you wasn't expecting, and I know that's true for me. You know, when I took a trip up to Minnesota, and up there to the native reservation there, and going into Canada, and it was cross-cultural, and your perspective really changes when you go on a cross-cultural mission trip. You see how differently people live. It really changes how you view things, and even how you live your life. And the Lord shows you a lot of things that maybe you had in your heart that shouldn't have been there. You know, like not being thankful in your heart and taking things for granted. And you go to a different area, and it helps you, gives you a different perspective. So I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah,
you know,
true.
and I love missions. I love local missions, and I love abroad missions. And there's just something, the church should always be on mission. You know, Nick Heron, everybody knows him. He wore a shirt last Wednesday. He was in church with us here last week, and his shirt said "mission" on mission, I believe. And it's true. We're always on mission for the Lord. Wherever we go, whatever we do, we're always on a mission. We have purpose. We're not just wandering aimlessly. You know, it's like your job. You know, you're not just there to make a living. God has you there to be a light for Him. And so the second question that I have here is, and y'all let me know if you have a question or anything. The second question I have is, what's the best way maybe to prepare for missions or a mission trip?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think I want to answer this question in two ways, if that's okay. And the first way is the stereotypical church way is stay prayed up, seriously. You know, in the Bible it says to be ready in and out of season. and I think that's very true. I had to learn that the hard way. I thought I was ready, and I definitely was not. But the other way to get ready for a mission trip is honestly just go. Because in Matthew 28:18, the Great Commission, it says Jesus commends us to go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And the first step of that, and the first word is go. You won't really be ready until you're there. And even when you're there, you're not going to be ready. Because when you're on a mission, there may be like objectives within a mission, but you're not going to know you're ready for the mission until you've completed it. So I think the best way to prepare for a missions trip is to pray and stay ready, and to go, and overall, over both of those things, is to trust God. And because you don't know what you're going to expect. Something I had to learn on this mission trip is, and I had to learn very quickly because of some of the members of the team, is that here in America we're blessed with religious freedom. No matter how you want to look at it, we have religious freedom here. We have the freedom to worship God freely without worrying about what's going to happen to us. And in other parts of the world, that is not the case. And in a couple of the countries I was at, that was not the case. We did not have the religious freedom to worship God without being watched, or even worship God without the possibility of death. And that's something you have to really be aware of, is that, and honestly to have gratitude for it, is that here in America we really do have freedom. And one way to stay prepared and to be ready is to trust God. Know that no matter where we're at, we might not have the freedom from men to worship God, but we have the freedom from God to worship God and to witness to men. And yeah,
Amen. That's really good.
it was all over the place.
That's really good. How how has this mission trip affected your life?
Oh, so something me and the team have talked about since we've got back. So it impacted my life spiritually, of course, and even in the things that I saw, like these people that seemingly had less, honestly had more. They might have had less materially, but they definitely had more as far as spirituality goes and as far as gratitude goes. These people lived in basically huts. They didn't have electricity unless it was solar power, and even then it didn't last throughout the night. And these people didn't have, in some cases they didn't have running water, and in some cases, or really every case, they didn't have air conditioning like we have right now, thank God. And they didn't have heat for the cold mornings. But they were the happiest, most humble people, and these people were like, they had a true servant's heart. Everywhere I went, every person I came in contact with, they really just wanted to serve people, and they really wanted to love on people. And something else that really impacted my life is I was talking to Riley about it yesterday. You know, here in America, we often culture shame people, even as a church, really, but in all cultures of America, if you see certain people dress a certain way, or certain people eat a certain food, or certain things that we think shouldn't be in their culture, we in America, oftentimes they get shamed for that. But over there, they loved for us to step into their culture. They encouraged us. They actually, I wish I would have brought it with me, but one of the nights, or one of the days, we spent 26 hours with a native family there to see what life is really like. And when we left, they gave us all capulanas. And what a capulana is in Mozambique is really everything to them. They use those as tablecloths, as curtains. The women use them as dresses. The men can use them as robes. It's everything to them. But it's also a great expense. So for them, like, to buy a capulana would be like 10% of their yearly income. But they bought each of us capulanas, and that really like touched my heart. And I think that was a highlight, that these people were so like willing and so hungry to serve and to show love and to show honor to people, that they're willing to give everything. And even if they have little, they're willing to give it to us. And I think that really changed my life, to be able to see that. I think that was your question. How did it change my life?
Yeah. Now, were they really big on hospitality? Did they serve you well? Is serving others a big thing there with them?
Serving others. When we got there, they told us that that their hospitality is a really big thing, but when they see white people, to us, it is, in their culture, it is a huge honor for them to. Well, they think it's a blessing to be in the presence of a white person, which that in itself was super humbling, because like I said, they're willing to give everything. And during the time we were there, we had like 7 chefs. They did not let us go hungry. There's a few times I wish they would have, honestly, because they made sure we always had anything we needed every time we needed it. When we went to church, they would carry our Bibles for us. They would take them back for us, like the smallest things. They would clean our shoes off when we got back. It's a very sandy area, so we would take our shoes off outside. They would clean them off for us. They would clean the house for us while we were out doing whatever. And so, yeah, hospitality for them is huge.
Well, that's amazing to me. And here a while back, we were talking about how the group was. I asked him, how do they hold their church services there? You know, what's the structure of their service, and how do they do things? You know, and I asked him if they were time oriented. And for us here in America, we're very goal oriented. We have to get this done, and we're very much productivity. We got to be productive. But from what I gather, they're more time oriented, and their church services are not oriented with time at all. They're just, and Could you explain a little bit, maybe talk a little bit about that, about the time factor, and also how their services were, and how, and you said something about how they took all day for something. You go ahead.
Oh yeah. So there, they never knew what time it was. And it's not that they didn't have phones. It's not that they didn't have clocks. They just didn't care. Like here, I was telling Samuel, we're very on schedule here, I guess is the right word. Like we get in church on Sunday morning, and a lot of churches are like, oh, we have to get out by 11:30. We have to be out by 12:30, so we can get to lunch. There, that is definitely not the case. And there were some service. We had 7 services that while we were there to put things into perspective. We were in the village for 8 days, and we had 7 church services.
Well,
And one of those days we had 3 services, which they didn't plan. It just happened. And some of those services lasted an hour, some lasted 2 hours, one lasted 4 hours, one lasted an entire day and half the night. We had a devotion one night with some of the locals, and we started when it got dark about 5 p.m. and we ended at about 1:30 in the morning. So and it's not just in church services, like it's in their life. They have jobs, some of them do. But they just get up and they just take their time. They have a set list of things, and they say we have to get this done today. But doesn't matter how long it takes. If we finish in an hour, cool. If we finish in 6 hours, cool. And I think that's something we can learn from. It was very weird to like adjust to that coming from here, where we have like a set list of things to do, and like the job I'm at especially, we have to get this done right now. Like you have like 6 seconds. And there it was like, you have this to do, but you can take all your time you need. And their church services were awesome, like insane. Like they would get in there. When we got there, they told us that these people, when they pray, they pray. And I heard that and I thought, well, we pray in America too, but not like that. They would say they would get there an hour before service and pray, sometimes 2 hours. But the guest house we stayed at was like right across from the church, like walking distance, which is pretty cool. But we would hear them one of the days, the night I preached, which was Friday night. We heard them in there. Service starts at 6 p.m. there, and it was probably 3, maybe 4, and we heard them in there praying. And I thought, you know what? I want to go experience this and see what it's really like. And it was absolutely true. When they pray, they pray. They take their time. They pray. They'll have prayer requests, and they'll say, all right, right now we're going to pray for the church. And they'll spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And then they'll say, okay, now we're going to pray for our president. And now we're going to pray for our pastor. Now we're going to pray for this sick person. Now we're going to pray for our jobs. Now we're going to pray for our school. And they would take their time. And, I don't think time is a thing to them at all, really. And like they really live by the mindset of as soon as the sun's up, we're gonna start, and as soon as the sun goes down, we're still gonna keep going. But whenever we get tired, we're going to bed. But it was awesome to experience that.
They love Jesus, don't they? The Christians there.
Yes.
What was the best and maybe the worst part of your trip?
Well, the worst part, I think, is easier to answer, and that would definitely be the. Okay, so to put things into perspective, I've never been on a plane before this trip, and so my first ever flight, I flew out of Atlanta, which that right there was terrible. I flew out of Atlanta on a 15 and a half hour plane ride to Johannesburg, South Africa.
On your first plane?
My first plane.
Wow.
And I knew nobody else on the trip, and I'm an introvert, so it was like a whole nightmare. Like a fever dream is the word that they kept using on the trip. So my first flight's 15 hours. And I'm not used to planes, so I didn't sleep through the whole flight. And we get in South Africa, and we had a 12-hour layover. And I didn't sleep through that either. So that was absolutely the worst part, was the travel to get there. I texted my parents a few times before I even got there. And I said, you know what, I'm tired of this. I'm booking a trip back. I'm not going to make it all the way to Mozambique. I'm coming back home. And you know, they encouraged me. They're like, you know, it's gonna be okay. Just try to get some rest. But the problem is, we still joke about it because the intercom there was so loud, and then COVID is a big problem in South Africa still. And every 10 seconds, I don't know what they would say for the first part. Have no clue. I couldn't tell you. Couldn't even try to. But then at the end, they would say in the creepiest voice, "Protecting you, protecting us." Every 10 seconds. And I'd doze off, and I would hear, "Protecting you, protecting us." And I would be so frustrated and pray to God, please let the speaker break or something. And then there was one time I did doze off and fall asleep, and the founder of the organization, Kyle, comes over there and he's like, "Hey, psst, Jayden, we're gonna move over here because the speaker's not as loud." And I looked at him and I said, "Kyle, I just now fell asleep." And he said, I know. And we got over there and I didn't sleep the rest of the time. But that was absolutely the worst part, was getting there. And the best part, I don't want to be stereotypical and say the whole trip, but at the same time, the whole trip was the best part. It was the people there, the kids there, the way they pray, the way they love, the way they truly live in community with each other, in unity, and the way that they truly worship God and really press in all the time. And of course, the team I was with, they were a great team, and it was awesome to get to know all of them. But yeah, I don't think I could say like my favorite parts, but the worst parts, I could definitely go on about that.
So you would say it's worth it anyways, right?
Oh,
it's
yes,
still
yes.
It's still worth going on the mission trip, even though you have to go through some difficulty. And I just want to let y'all know. Oh, go ahead, Amanda.
I want to ask you, what are the children like there? Do they have like a separate church like we do here? Or just what are the children like?
That's a good question. So the kids there are they were fascinated by us. And it was like so humbling, but like every morning we would wake up and there'd be like a kid peeking through a window. Or there'd be like, as soon as we opened the door to the guest house, the kids would go around and they would go, "What?" Like I learned a little bit of Portuguese while I was there, so I knew what they were saying, which made it funnier. They'd go, "Oh, look, the white people are awake." And they would come up there and we'd be eating breakfast and the door would be open because, I mean, it was an awesome view. So we'd have the door open and they'd come peek around and they'd ask if we wanted to go out there and play soccer with them, like every 5 seconds. Like, "You want to play soccer? You want to go play soccer?" And I did once, and that was enough for me. But they would ask all the time. They just wanted to play with us. They just wanted to get to know us, and they were so eager to learn. Like, because I guess to them, I mean, we're totally different than they are in their minds. So they would ask us, like, they would try to impress us with their English words, which was hilarious. And they would come up and they would be like,
What were their famous English words?
"Oh." They loved to tell us what their names were in English because they just thought it was the coolest thing. They would say hello, and when they realized they said it correctly, they would smile, like the biggest smile. Like when they said hello and it got our attention, they would be like, "Oh wow, I really got their attention." And they'd say, "My name is," and then when they realized they said that right, it would, like, their smile would get bigger. And they'd say, "What is your name?" And then they'd realize, I'm really doing this. And they love to teach us Portuguese. They could have been telling us the wrong things. Like, I could have said some terrible things there. I don't know. But regardless, it was cool. For church, they have children's church, but while we were there, the kids like really loved us. And so they didn't have children's church. They just wanted to listen to us and what we had to say and how we preached, and they just wanted to play all the time. But yeah, that's a good question. I haven't got that one yet. Huh.
You had an interpreter, right?
Yes, which was very interesting. Never have preached with an interpreter before, and it was an experience for sure to be able to. And plus, you know, the language barrier goes like much deeper, which I had to learn, than just interpretation. Like, there were some words I would preach that I would preach here, and my interpreter, who was very smart, she knows multiple languages, and she would look at me confused and say, I don't know how to translate that word. Like, is there another word? A lot of words. So I had to preach on like a second grade level, which I was kind of prepared for, but it was definitely different.
Oh man, I got distracted by the slide. I forgot what I was saying. Oh, the worship. When they were doing the worship, did you recognize any songs?
Oh, that's a really good question. I haven't heard that one either. So yeah, actually, there were some songs that I thought maybe what they were, but I'm not sure. But what was the one song? A lot of the songs they sang though, I recognized, like from leading worship here and from leading worship in my car and leading worship everywhere I go. But there were some songs that I did recognize, like they sang. How does it go? Mind blanked. But there were a lot of songs that we sing here, like even older songs, hymns, and contemporary songs that they would sing there. Like they sang. Nah, I'm sorry.
Is it live like an acapella?
No, they had a sound system,
Okay.
and they had like a keyboard that they kind of knew how to play. And they would run like a track in the background and kind of play to it. But nah, there wasn't really a lot of acapella. I wish I remembered the songs. But yeah, there was some.
I got another one. What's the strangest thing you ate while you were over there?
Oh wow. Well, I don't know where to start.
You eat crab worms?
So one night they made fish, but over there they don't. Well, some of them do, but the host that cooked. This was the night that I stayed with the host family, the natives, and they made us fish, but they didn't like skin or like fish had everything, scales, the fish head, the tail, everything. So, but it's very offensive to them to not try. And as a picky eater, it was terrifying. But there was that, and they also made chicken foot soup, which once again, you know, it's offensive to not try.
So you did try?
I had to.
Had to.
I had a toothpick in the bowl.
Wow.
Imagine being around people of faith like that really would change you.
Oh yes. Oh, that's also something else. The worship, like, even though I couldn't understand what they were saying, it was very interesting to me that like my spirit agreed with what was happening, and I could still feel the spirit. Really, I felt the spirit of God. I was telling Sam, I'll probably tell many times, like the spirit of God there was so strong, like stronger than I've ever felt before at all times. Like I think I said on Sunday, last Sunday, that like the best way I can explain it is to imagine yourself at a time where you felt the presence of God so powerful. And I know it happens, at least in my case, like it'll be like a 5-second thing. Like you'll feel the presence of God, get the goosebumps, the Holy Ghost bumps, and you'll be like, wow. But it'll last like 5 minutes, you know. But imagine that 24/7, all day, every day. Every person you talk to, every place you go, it was like that all the time.
And in that kind of atmosphere, that part of the world's known for their deep faith and stuff. God seems to manifest and do miracles in huge settings, or in that part of the world. Did you hear or see or anything like that?
We heard of some miracles that had happened in that church, actually. Like there was a lady that, well, there were multiple times where people were like on the verge of death and they would just be healed miraculously. And there was also a lady, well, another problem there is they're known for their, Gumbani is a Christian village, but outside of Gumbani in Maputo, which is in Mozambique, they have a witch doctor that often, well, that's their healthcare. They just have witch doctors. And the witch doctors hate Gumbani, like hate Gumbani. And the team that was there before my team, they actually had to experience the witch doctors coming to, so it was where we stayed, the guest house and the church is in a gated compound, but the village itself is not. And when the last team was there, like literally they left a week before we did, not even a week, and they had witch doctors coming and chanting like over the wall, like cursing the church. And I kind of wish I would have experienced that, because it would have been interesting to see how I reacted to that. But and even while I was there, they did a house visit while I was cleaning up the soccer field, where the lady had a stroke. I think I talked about this, maybe not. I think I told you about it. Did I not?
I don't think so.
Yeah, you talked about it.
I did talk about it. There was a lady that had a stroke, and this lady could not care for herself. Like, it was so bad that she couldn't walk. She couldn't really, she could do the bare minimum. I'll just go with that. But her neighbors had been helping her, and her family had came, and they'd been helping her out. But the witch doctor told her family that if they kept helping her, they would die. And I think someone did die. But while we were there, the pastor, Celia, most amazing person, she went and took a few of the girls from the team, and they prayed for her. And Celia really, they said, the way they explained it was Celia really, really got in the spirit. And it was in such a way that I would call a miracle, that she was praying to the woman in Portuguese, but the girls in my team spoke English, but they knew what she was saying. And when they got back to the guest house, we were all talking about it at the table, because I was kind of asking about it. And they said, they're like, I don't know how I know, but what she said, I'm pretty sure is, and Celia confirmed it. She said, yeah, that's crazy. That's what I said. But, so I think that was in itself a miracle. You know, when we hear miracles, we think of, you know, the dead being raised, or cancer disappearing, or broken bodies healing, which I've experienced that. But that's a miracle too, you know, just being able to understand. But what she told the lady was, you can't serve God and fear the witch doctors, and you can't fear death and serve God. And she told the lady, you've got to pick one. Like, you can't dabble on both, you can't be on the fence. And they said they were all crying, the spirit dropped so strong. But yeah, they were saying miracles happen there a lot. And they have to rely on God there. They don't have, like, as many resources as we do, but they also don't have as many, like, distractions. So there they really understand the power of God, because they have to. So, yeah.
And the demonic power is real strong too.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's definitely something there to experience from the Lord, that the Lord wanted to show you. And I had a question I was going to ask you, and it left me like it did you, Daniel. You mentioned something about distractions. Here, we get distracted easy, don't we? We get distracted real easy with other things. What you said over there's not as many distractions. Could you maybe elaborate on that a little bit? Maybe how did they, is it because of the media, like technology? Or are you speaking of distractions in terms of technology or just, or even spiritually?
Kind of both, honestly. Because, like, if I ask right now what time it is, I guarantee somebody knows. Like, right now, somebody knows. Or if I ask what inning it is right now in the Braves game, somebody knows. Like, or if somebody's looked at their phone for the past 10 seconds, somebody has. And there they have phones, and there they have social media. But I don't know what it is. Like, I really don't know. Like, they had all these things. And I told Sam, the night I preached there, he asked a really good question. He said, what is the attention span like there? Because here, you know, when I preach, and I know Sam experienced it, because I do, in the little I've preached here. But, like, people get distracted. Like, you'll know, and it's so funny to see. Like, people are just not there. And you'll be like, sometimes I'll be trying to like purposely get one person's attention, because I'll notice like, dude, they've been off like the whole time. They're like looking at the lights, they're like looking at the clock thinking, man, when is he gonna stop? But they're like, it was so weird but so cool that like it was awkward but in a good way, that these people were like staring into my soul. It felt like they really wanted to know what I had to say, and they didn't know what I was saying until the translator said it. So it was like so weird to me. Like they were like dead on, no distractions. I don't think I saw anybody like that I noticed at all like veer off. Yeah, check their phone. Well, they don't use watches, but I didn't notice anybody like. And there's no clock in the church. That's something that's interesting. There was a clock at the very front, in front of the stage, and it disappeared while we were there. So don't know what happened to it. There was one clock where only like the preacher could see it, but I don't know. I didn't notice it. So.
Are there any long-term missionaries there?
Celia, the pastor, she is actually she has a movie about her where she talks about all this, but
You know the name of it?
I could figure it out once you guys know. I think it's called
Let us know.
Celia Sunflowers or something like that. But so she's from Brazil, and when she was in Brazil, she worked for the Church of God there, and she was studying to be a missionary, and she had intentions to go, I don't remember, somewhere totally else. She probably talks about it on the movie, I don't know. I interviewed her myself and she told me, but I can't remember. But she, basically what had happened was she had intentions of going somewhere else, and then I think she said she had like a dream, or she felt in her spirit something about Africa. And so she thought, okay, and she was looking more at West Africa. And then one of the people in the Church of God approached her and said, there's this place in Mozambique, this little tiny village called Gumbani, where if you look at a map, you're not going to find it, unless you really, really know where you're looking. It's like looking for Benton, Tennessee on a map of the United States. But worse, actually. Like, there's no way to find it. I tried when I got back. I want to find Gumbani. You can't. But, so they approached her, told her about it, and she said, I'll pray about it. But she said she felt immediately in her spirit that that's where she's being sent. But she told him she'll pray about it, which in America means no, usually. But she was like, yeah, I'll pray about it. And she said that she kept on feeling it stronger and stronger and stronger until finally she told the guy yes. So she's from Brazil, and she's a long-time missionary there. She's been there for 19 years. When she got there, it was just bush and some huts. And then when the Church of God sent her there, she built the church. They built the church. They built everything that's there right now. And then the youth pastor, Sabani, who is the funniest, yet scariest person I've ever met. Like, she acts like she's so serious until you get to know her, and she's like the biggest prankster, which is why she's scary, terrifying. You don't know what she's going to do until we pranked her, which was a highlight of the trip, pranking Sabani. But she's also from Brazil. They were best friends in Brazil, and now they're best friends in Gumbani. So it was really cool to see best friends literally called from a totally other part of the world, and now they're leading this thriving church in Gumbani. And actually, right now, the church has grown so much. Something I should have touched on how the church is there. The church has grown so much that on Sundays, they often have overflow, and there's so many people there that are so hungry for God that they have to set chairs outside. And in the summer, it's like 130 degrees there. You will not catch me outside. But you won't catch me in Gumbani. But even in the summertime, they said they have chairs like set outside. And it's not just like, yeah, we'll bring out a couple of chairs. No, they did have set chairs out while we were there. And it was basically like double the sanctuary capacity outside. And they had the speakers so loud that I couldn't hear myself think, but it was because people were outside, like, wanting to listen. And I don't know where I was going with that, but they're so hungry that, like, they're willing to go sit outside in the burning heat, no matter what, just to be able to hear the presence of God. And I do know where I was going with that. So they outgrew the church, and God blessed them to where now while I was there, I got to go look and pray over the foundation. They're building a new church, a huge church, and it'll be really good for them. So yeah, the church life there is great.
That is great news.
Yes.
And that amazes me, their hunger for the Lord. So the church is growing there, and the Lord is doing a great work there, and they're willing to go out in 100 degree plus weather and have church. Just have worship service.
And in the rain. Well, it doesn't rain there a lot, but
How far did some of them maybe travel to come to?
that was something else. So the night that we got sent with the host family, they told me, so we got sent in pairs. So that made me feel a little better as an introvert. It's like, okay, there'll be one person that knows English, because we had no cell phone service, really, no way to communicate with these people. And then I got the news. So my partner, Mateo, he writes music and for Far Flung, and he leads worship at RTTN in Chattanooga. So one of the songs he wrote for Far Flung, they just I think they did it on purpose, but they just so happened to decide, we're going to film the music video today. And so they're like, yeah, Jayden, you're going to have to go by yourself. You have the farthest house away than anybody does. And their house is farther, but like out of our team that went to stay with these people, I had the farthest one. And it really didn't feel like it until Mateo got there hours later. But they were like, wow, you must have had to walk far, because it took us about 20-25 minutes to drive here. And I thought, nah, it didn't feel like that long. And the lady, the wife, she said, oh yeah, it's about a 45-50 minute walk. And they all walk. Very few of them have cars. So like just that family that I stayed with, Yvonne and his wife, they walk 50 minutes to church every service. Never fails. And their house is farther than theirs. So yeah, these people are willing to walk like an hour to church. And here in America, and I'm including myself, we'll wake up and think, I don't want to drive to church. That's like 30 minutes. That's like 10 minutes. That's like, I have to get out of bed. I have to get ready. I have to drive. But these people, they don't care. They walk an hour, and I can't even drive 25 minutes. So that was humbling.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot that we're learning tonight, and that we're gleaning from your experience and from the stories that you're sharing with us, and areas where we can learn from them. We can learn from their hunger for God, and I pray that we, take some of this stuff and really let it press upon our hearts. Let the Holy Spirit impress upon us to take your experience and what you said tonight and take it with us. Does anybody else have any questions? Go ahead.
So the family you was with, they lived in huts, correct?
So the family I was with, we were blessed. They were one of the richest families in Gumbani, but even their house was, they built all their houses themselves, and it was pure concrete, like concrete floor, concrete wall, concrete roof, no tin roof, no air conditioner. Like when I say rich there, it would still be like beyond poverty here. But yeah, a lot of them live in huts. None of them have like bathrooms, like actual bathrooms. Like I sent Samuel a video of how that family took showers, and they were one of the richest families there. And even that was very humbling. And the way they have to use the bathroom, the way they have to cook, they don't have they don't have plumbing at all. So, yeah.
How is their worship compared to the way we worship here?
Better. They really press in. They're all so hungry. Like there's never a moment there where like I said, the same as like distractions. There's never a moment there that I saw somebody like just waiting, like just waiting for the song to end, ready to go home, ready to go eat lunch, which they do. When church is over, they eat, and they eat a lot. Their Sunday lunch is like Thanksgiving, but yeah, the worship there, they press in, and they don't care how long it lasts. They go until, which that was cool too. Like the unity there, and when I say unity, I mean literally and spiritually. Like I didn't understand a lot of what they said. I learned a lot of their language, but no, I didn't. I learned very little of their language, but like spiritually, like you could feel when the worship was about to end, like it would kind of go down, and it felt like they were pros at it. But in reality, I mean, nobody's a pro. But these people, they were very in tune with the Spirit, and anybody who walked into that church, I don't know how they wouldn't be. Like the Spirit was so strong, like saturating that place that like, if you don't feel anything there, like Nick says, your feelers broke. And so yeah, their worship there was so in unison, so in tune with each other, and in tune with heaven. Like you really felt heaven on earth every time they worshiped.
You was talking about the village. I mean, about how many people lived in that village, and you know, just like a rough estimate was 1,000, less.
Well, on
'Cause I know
Saturday,
they all had to walk to there.
yeah. So on the Saturday, we had a thing for the kids, and they said there were about 400 families that come to that church, and far flung, just by guessing about how many times they've been there, they assumed there was about 400 families, but the week before they had Children's Day, which is it's a national holiday for them now, which that's so cool to be a part of, like the leaders of the national holiday there. But they said they expected 500, the same as we did, and they got 2,000, 2,000 to 3,000. So they don't know if they all came from the village. They don't know if they came from all over Mozambique. They have no clue. But they assume there's about 400
about how
families.
many it was, and I was thinking about how many kids was there.
Yeah.
And it's usually about, it usually ranges like half.
Yeah. So okay, at the church, they typically had about 400 kids, which is crazy, even here. So, yeah, that was like their usual attendance. It was 200 to 400 every week, every service. Oh, and the church there, they do like extracurricular stuff for the kids. So after school, because they have school, which school there is different too, which is really weird. But after school, they would come to the church, which I thought was awesome. They would come to church not to like shoot basketball like we do in America, you know. And in America, you hear, oh yeah, we're doing extracurriculars at youth group, and what that really means is we're gonna play some games, we're gonna shoot some hoops, we're gonna play minute to win it games. But their extracurriculars would be they would come from school to like what our Sunday school would be. Like they would go in classrooms and learn about God and worship. So they just had they're like their fun would be like, for us, what we would often think is, oh, it's another day. I'm going from school back to school, or oh, I just heard a lecture and now I'm like, they have church, like I think every week they have like 6 services of church. And in America, we often struggle to have 2 or 3. But they're like, they have so many people and so many, they're all so hungry that they have like 6 services, 7 services, 8 services, just whatever happens.
Are there other denominational churches there from America?
There are no, you mean like, do they have the same denominations we do? Or do you mean
Well, like, I mean, is there a Baptist church or a Methodist or?
So in the village, in Mozambique, there were not a lot of churches in the whole country as a whole, but in Gambani, I think they said they had 2, and the one I was at was the Church of God, and the other one I think they said was like what America would look at as like a Methodist, but they had a different understanding the only reason we knew ours was Church of God is because of Celia, who works for the Church of God in Brazil and now in Africa. But they don't really, which I think we can learn from too, honestly, they don't really look at denomination. They just look at we're there to worship God. And I wish we could have gone to see what that church was really like, because they said it was kind of like Methodist, but I had to die to see it. But
Was it calmer worship?
I wish I knew. I was really hoping we could go, but I don't even know where it was at, honestly. But yeah, I think they said not a lot of people go to that one, but I would assume it was probably calmer, because she said it was more Methodist and usually they're calmer than Church of God.
Yeah.
Pentecostal.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody else got any more questions? I have a lot of questions, but I want to ask one more. I'll ask one more question. What things are you excited to accomplish now that you're home? And what are your new goals now?
Well, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I think Sam knows this. Going into this trip, I had no plans to go to Africa. It just happened. Like, I actually was planning on going to Alaska for a long time, and I had even partnered with a church there, 2 churches. I had partnered with some organizations there, and I had like everything laid out for me to go. And then I know it was God, but I just so happened to see this trip to Mozambique, and something about it, I really don't know what it was, but other than God, but something about it really drew me in. So I signed up for that and gave them my money. And so yeah, going into the trip, I had no intentions of getting my passport or getting my visa or leaving America at all, but I did, and God led me there. And I've learned the hard way: when God says go, you go, and when you don't, you still go. It's just a little more painful when you say no. But so I had no intention. So that in itself was different. So now that I'm back, your question was, what goals do I have now? What am I excited for?
Do you have any new goals or anything that you feel the Lord is directing you to now, since you're back home?
So going on that trip, and a lot of the team, which I think is so cool, we didn't know each other. Although a couple of us go to Lee, never met each other. A lot of the leaders there graduated from Lee. We didn't know any of them. They didn't know us. So we had a lot in common, but didn't know each other. And one thing we all had in common, which was kind of shocking when we got there, is that we all felt, a lot of them explained that they felt burnt out, but with me, it's not that I felt burnt out. I just felt like I wasn't growing. And it was nothing against this church. It was nothing against Sam. It was nothing against any of the churches I visited, because I had to with Lee. But like everywhere I went, it was just like a spiritual blockage, and nothing I did, like everything just felt so and I know what it is now that I'm back, but everything here is so loud is the only way I can explain it. Like, there's so many distractions, there's so much going on politically and economically, and even at Lee there's so many things changing so rapidly, and at work everything is like so loud. So going there, it was so refreshing to just lay back. It was so quiet, and we were all on the same page there. We all were like kind of burned out. We needed revival, and we definitely got it. And now that I'm back, I really feel led by God I'm hoping, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but that's what trusting in God looks like. But I really hope that I can bring the things that I experienced there in the best way possible here to Chestatee and to America and everywhere that I go, and every group that I am a part of, and every classroom I go into at Lee. And actually, it was so perfect, the timing. I shared earlier today a memory on Facebook, And it was 5 years ago, which is crazy. I feel old. But in that post, I was talking about, and I remember it like it was yesterday. God, I felt so burned out then. And God had reminded me, it was like, dude, I was young at that time. And because I felt like I struggle with what they call imposter syndrome, I guess. Like, there's a lot of times I don't feel, like I'll ask God, like, in the same way a lot of the Bible characters did. But I'll be like, God, why me? Like, I'm not good enough for this. I'm an introvert. I'm terrified of speaking in front of people, even still. And I'm so bad at it. But God reminded me, he was like, I was only 16 at the time, and I preached in a wrestling ring, which that in itself is still so much. Like, growing up, I loved wrestling so much. So for me to be in a wrestling ring was cool, but for me to preach in a wrestling ring, there was no way I would have ever imagined that. But God. And I'd preached at a tent revival. There's no way I would have ever imagined that, but God. And I'd preached here. There's no way I would have imagined that or wanted to do that, but God. And there were all these things, and I was like, I had so much gratitude 5 years ago. And I posted about it, and I was like, it's so crazy that I'm 16 years old, and God's blessing me with these opportunities. But now looking back, I was like, that was 5 years ago. And now, like, I don't even know, like, where I've been. Like, there's so many opportunities that, like, looking back, I hope that people see in my testimony that, like, I know there's a stereotype where people are like, God can use anybody, but it is so true. Like, people that know me growing up that I went to school with, like, when they hear that I preach now, all the time I'll see them and they'll say, dude, I saw you preach now. How? Like, I was the kid in school that was so quiet. Not when I was little. I got in trouble when I was little, but when I grew up, I was so quiet. I never really talked to anybody. I was so shy. And even when I started coming here, I was so shy. I met Sam at wrestling. God. But I was so shy. I never really talked to anybody. I never, ever, ever would sing in front of people but God. And even like speaking in class, like, this sounds so dumb, but I know a lot of people, the kids in here probably relate. Like, when we would take a roll call, I'd be counting the people in front of me back, okay, like, mentally preparing myself, all right, I have to say here, like, 5 people from now. Like, how am I going to do this? And now I say too many words, like, all the time. Like, I speak too much in front of people. And even at work, it's such a blessing to me. And I'm just going to brag on God for a little bit, if that's okay. So I've made really good friends at work. And I told Sam a while back, there's one night where I was so excited to come to church the next morning. I don't know what it was, but there's something. And something I've really made a big part of my ministry is that when I was in youth group here, which we had amazing youth leaders, but growing up in the church I was at before here, and even seeing the friends that I had that were Christians before I came here to Chestatee, I'd always saw, and I was always really introduced to the idea of waving your Christian flag and like proving yourself, I guess, and going around and saying, oh, I'm a Christian, or judging, or just judging. It's just that, judging. And I never saw it work, ever. And so I started in Mars, and I was like, I'm at a company here where I plan to work for my whole college career. I was like, I really don't think it'd be a good idea for people to hate me. So I never, ever forced people. Like, I never walked up and said, hey, I'm Jayden, I'm a Christian. Like, I would just realize that I want these people to know I'm a person. Like, I'm not higher up than them just because I'm a Christian, and definitely not because I'm going to school for ministry. Like, I'm on the same level as these people, no matter where they're at. And the first time that that God really opened my eyes to that is there was this pagan witch that I worked with. And my first encounter with her, she said, she did introduce herself like that. She heard we had gone to Lee, me and some of my coworkers, and she said, I don't think I would fit in there. And so I just asked, which I shouldn't have, but I said, oh, why wouldn't you fit in there? And she said, well, I'm a pagan witch. And I just said, oh, that doesn't mean you wouldn't fit in there. Like, Lee's for everyone. And the same way that Christ is for everyone. which I didn't say that. But I said leaves for everyone, you know. Just because you have different beliefs in somebody doesn't mean you can't communicate, you can't commune with them. And we, you know, when we read the Bible, how many times did you see Jesus like going into churches? He did, but that's not what a lot of the Bible talks about. The Bible talks about Jesus and the woman at the well, Jesus and the woman with the issue of blood, Jesus and the prostitute, Jesus and the drunk, Jesus and the fisherman. And something I had to learn, and I'm so blessed and I have so much gratitude that I've caught it like so young. Because a lot of people I've talked to, like even my own family, like it took them so long to catch that. But the first time I really experienced that was just that. That's the only, like, I guess Christ encounter I had with her was saying that I'm a Christian and I'm going to school for ministry. And I never told her about church or my church. And we had a revival here. And she came to work I couldn't make it because I had to work extra hours. And she came to work the next weekend and she was like, you notice anything different? And I was like, yeah, you seem more upbeat today. You know, it's kind of strange, but you know, some people have good days. And you know, because I would work at that time 7 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. and then go to class. So I was definitely never upbeat. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be in bed asleep. But she was more upbeat that day, and we were all like, why is she so happy? Like, even me, the Christian, I was like, why is she so happy? Like, it's too early for this. And she said, well, guess where I went this past weekend? And I was thinking, I don't think I want to guess. And she said, I went to church and I got saved. They gave my life to God. And she said, actually, I went to your church. And I was like, how was that? And she said, yeah, you go to Chester Worship Center. They said that they know your name. And then I remembered that the Sunday before that, Nick had told me, he was like, yeah, it's crazy. We had this pagan witch came and she ripped her necklace off and threw it in the trash and gave her life to God. And I never connected the two. And when she said that, I felt the presence of God so strong, and I felt God saying, that's it. So from that moment on, I always lived by that. And to see the fruits, like truly, something else too is like, I grew up playing baseball, so you have to understand, I struggle with patience. Because like in baseball and in sports, it's like competition, go. I want to see the results now. But ministry is not like that at all. Literally at all. And the first time I really noticed that was then, and then I had to learn about planting seeds then. And so there's these two guys I work with, they're both named Andrew, which is crazy, it's so funny. And we've all three become very good friends. But the same thing, I just treat them the same as everyone else. And I just talk to them like I talk to everyone else. And I just hang out with them. And I just literally dine with them. We go to Taco Bell, that's what they like to do. We go to Taco Bell every Saturday night, which is, I always regret the next day. And when I come to church, I'm there till like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I get up for church, and I'll say, God, there better be something coming out of this. And there was. There's one night I texted Sam, I think it was like 5:30 in the morning, he probably doesn't remember this, but I do like it was yesterday. And I texted Sam and I said, man, I won't be at church in the morning, but I had church. We get there at Taco Bell, and I could tell there was something bothering one of the Andrews. I always say that I always feel like I'm in an Andrew sandwich when I'm with them. There's like 2 Andrews and Jayden. And then we had 2 more Andrews get a job there. So now there's like 4 Andrews and Jayden. And so we get there, and I don't remember how it came up. I don't remember the question he asked. But regardless, he opened the door, which is his fault. He opened the door and asked me a question about God, and he was like astonished by my answer, which I didn't know why. Like he asked, like to me, what seemed like such a basic question, but to him, he really wanted to know. And in Gumbani, I saw the same thing. But he started asking questions, and then we went down a rabbit trail where he kept on. And he was like, you know, you're so wise, which is something else, like from the trip, something that they said to me, which I laughed every time they said it, because I thought, man, you're talking about another guy. But he was saying, he was like, dude, when you talk, you're so wise. And he said, I can tell that you really have a heart for people. And one thing led to another, and now both of the Andrews were like, you know, it would be the highest honor to be baptized by you. And like it really, I started crying in front of them. I was like, it's not tears, trust me, it's just allergies. And I was like, I'm really tired, you know, it's just allergies out here, it's so cold, which it was like 78 degrees. But and I was like, it would be the highest honor for me to baptize you. And they were like, why would it be an honor for you? And I said, well, in the Bible, you know, it was a huge honor for John to baptize Jesus, but it was a bigger honor almost for Jesus to baptize everyone else. And I was like, and I'm no way Jesus, but for someone to like come, and I'm sure it's the same for Sam, like when that is my calling, that is my career, is to like lead people to Jesus, and I get to see the fruits from that, from seeds I planted a long time ago. I've worked with them for 2 years, and when they say they're really gonna be baptized by me, like it really hit me. And on the trip, you know, I just kept getting reminded of these things. And on the last night, which I won't talk a lot, I know I've been talking a lot.
No,
But,
you're fine. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying hearing his testimony.
I haven't seen anybody veer off yet. So. But on the last night of the trip, in very weird fashion, which we joke about later on, which I won't get into that, but they said they always like to close far-flung trips in a very like intimate prayer, which I initially thought, you know, I'm making it sound weirder than it is. But so the way they do it, I initially thought, oh, it's gonna be easy. You know, I do this all the time in youth group, in a church. I do this all the time back home. We're just gonna get in a circle. We're gonna hold hands. We're gonna pray. It's gonna be awkward for a minute, but then we're just gonna go to bed because I have to stay in the house with these people. But it wasn't like that. It was more awkward. We got in the circle, and she'd be like, okay, I want, so Jayden, I want you to come to the middle of the circle, and she'd be like, Sam, I want you to pray for Jayden. But we're all going to pray, but Sam would lead the prayer for me. And when it was my turn, which like in squad, we kind of like, okay. Well, it was all random, so I didn't know. But I was like, I'm assuming there's like 3 people before me. So, so we had to like ask what we needed prayer for, and like hearing what they needed prayer for was awesome too. But when it came my turn and they prayed for me, it was the like most intimate but funniest moment, and we were all dying laughing the rest of the time. Because the girl that prayed for me, she said, God, I know Jayden says he's an introvert, but I think he's lying to us. Because she said the first 2 days, he really didn't talk a lot, and he said he's meant a few words, and he meant it. But she said, but every time he does talk, it's like just full of wisdom, and he really has a heart for people. And she said, in the way that I see him interact with the kids, and the way that I interact with the team, she said, really reminded her of like Moses and other leaders in the Bible. She said, he's always full of so much wisdom, and he's like the funniest guy, which I try to be. It doesn't work, but because you didn't laugh, that's. But she was like, he's the funniest, most wise guy, and they're all laughing. They were like, yeah, I thought the same thing. He said he was an introvert, but I don't know. The last few days he talked a lot. I was like, okay, note taken. I'll shut up. But like it was just so funny. It was so intimate though to be able to. That's something else I didn't expect. Like I got in there and I thought, yeah, I'm just gonna pray, go to bed. I was really tired. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning because it went a long time. And but it wasn't like that. It was super intimate. That was when I think we really got to connect as a team. Like hearing like what was really on their hearts. Like I really need prayer for X. I really need prayer for Y, and we would get to pray for that, and it really opened our hearts to each other. But don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, it was an amazing trip. Don't even remember what the question was I was supposed to be answering, but I'll answer it.
What's something that you think we could apply now from what you learned?
Oh, I didn't expect that one. Something we can apply now. Okay, I'll say this. So, they told us when we got there it would be a hard trip to come home from. And because of my nightmare traveling there, I kind of laughed on the inside and thought, yeah, right. It'll be easy to leave here. I'm going home. I get to sleep, not on the flight, but in my bed. But it was so true. By the end of the trip, it was so hard to leave. And I think what it was all the things I've said, like the community, the love, the way they worship. And so when I got home, like the first 2 days, it just felt like weird. Like, and I texted the team because I was like, maybe I'm just weird. I mean, I know I am, but maybe it's just me. I don't know. So I was like, does it feel weird for you guys to like watch TV? They're like, yeah, it kind of does. And I was like, because I tried to watch Obi-Wan Kenobi, you know, I just the Force wasn't pulling me in. And I was like, I got home and I wanted the Lord's Chicken, Chick-fil-A. I thought I missed it, but then I got it. And like, it felt anointed, but it didn't feel as anointed as it used to. And but all jokes aside, like it felt really weird, and everything here felt so loud and so chaotic. And like going back home was chaotic. Everyone was so excited to see me, and I was so tired and so jet lagged that all I wanted to do was sit there and reflect on God's character. And I think that's what we can apply here, is that going there and coming back here to a place, okay, going back there where they're so on fire, truly on fire for God, and they don't have rain, so fire would spread a lot there. So they're really, if they're on fire, they're blazing. But you know, here I feel like in a real sense we have wet wood. I know Nick has said it a lot, and I laugh every time he says it, but he's so right. But like there, it's so dry, literally, physically, but also like fire spreads there spiritually, and it would physically, but spiritually, like fire spreads there, and they really want it. And so here, I don't know how we would apply that. I've been praying literally every night since, like, God, how do I bring that here? And the real answer is, I don't know. But I think what we can apply here is that to really, really press in. And there, like here, you know, I know how to answer it. So here, you know, even on domestic mission trips, I found myself really pressing into the comfort zone. Like we would say, oh, this is out of my comfort zone, but is it really? Like this is out of my comfort zone, but like we all speak the same language, and we have air conditioning in here, and it's cold in here, and like there's still like a small level of comfort that we're always going to press into naturally as human beings. But there, it almost felt like there was no room for comfort zone. Even the English speakers, we didn't know each other when we got there. And the people that didn't speak English, there was no comfort there. Like we didn't know how, it was so weird to, like, I had to learn how to communicate with these people. So what we would do is like a lot of charades and a lot of pointing, like, just figure it out. And I think something we can learn from that is that when we really, really get out of our comfort zone, God really does really, really move things. And they don't live comfortable lives. Like we live very, very comfortable lives here, but even there, like I said, even the wealthy aren't really comfortable. And the family I stayed with, he had dreams of coming to America, which was so heartbreaking to like, because he asked us, he was like, I hear here all the time that he hears there all the time that America is the land of opportunity still, and the land of freedom still, and the land of unity still. And he was asking me and Mateo and I, he was like, what is America really like? And I just looked at Mateo and we were like, what do we tell these people? So I was like, you know what? I'm an honest guy. So I told him, I said, America's so divided, and we're always, and since I've been back, I'm not going to get into it, but I've seen that like so much. Like regardless where you stand or where you should stand on political issues, it is never like a middle ground. Like there's always the radicals on this side, the radicals on this side, and the middle is a wall. And there are no people on either side that I've seen trying to dig through the wall and trying to dig a tunnel to where they can meet in the middle and talk. It's, I want to yell over this wall, and I want to yell over this wall, and I want to tell you why you're wrong, and you're going to tell me why I'm wrong, and you're going to tell me why you're going to hell for your beliefs, and you're going to tell me why I'm going to hell for my beliefs. And you're gonna tell me why this is wrong, and you're gonna tell me why that's wrong. But they're like, they just met in the middle. Like even with the witch doctors, they weren't like, okay, here, if there's a witch doctor in town, I know for a fact, whether y'all want to admit it or not, all of the Christians will be chanting at their house. They'd be chanting at the witch doctor's wall, the same way they were doing to them there. But there, they don't do that. There, while with the witch doctor, they're probably afraid they get cursed. But even like there were people in the village that were not Christian, but they didn't go over there and say, "Let me tell you about my Lord and Savior Jesus," or "Hey man, you better come to church. You're going to hell," or "Hey man, the way you killed that chicken was wrong," or "Hey," or they didn't say, "Hey man, you killed that chicken when it was too young, so you're going to hell." Or and I'm not saying anything politically because I think I'm on live stream, but they didn't. Regardless, what I'm trying to say is they didn't yell at each other. Like they just loved each other, and they were like, okay, so the guy I stayed with, his godfather, which is a big thing there, wasn't a Christian, and he came and ate with us, he came and dined with us, and he asked me questions about God, and they were just all so tied together, a community. And here, since I've been back, especially where I guess I'm more aware, it's not the case. Like, we have political stuff, and even churches. Like, oh, you go to that church is a cult. Or you go to that church is like crazy, dude. They dance, man. Like, they lift their hands at that church. They wear jeans at that church. Or wow, you go to that church, they wear suits. Like, it's always two hands yelling. And there's never a meet in the middle, like, okay, I want to understand why you do that. Or I want to understand how we can still work together and love each other, regardless of how you want to worship, or regardless of where you want to work, or regardless of anything, man. And here, like, there's just so much noise everywhere. Definitely politically, way too much noise. Like there. So Celia, she comes to America sometimes, and she's only ever here a week at a time, but she can tell you everything about American politics. I was in Africa as a whole for 11 days. I don't even know like anything about their politics. I don't know. I know they have a president because he was on the currency. Don't know his name. Don't know like if they have a party system. I don't know like what their stance on things that people care so much about here. And I think we can learn from that, because all they talk about is like caring for each other, or hey, you need something, I want to help you, and things like that. So I think I don't think answered your question at all. I think what we can do here is really learn how to love, regardless of political views, regardless on worship styles, regardless on the way people dress, regardless of where people live, regardless of anything at all. Because in the Bible, God says they will know that we are His disciples by what?
Love for each other.
What's after that? It's a period, right?
We can look it up. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, like, the concept of it is God doesn't say, they will know that you're my disciples by the way you love each other, comma, unless, or comma, except for. It just says, the world will know that you're my disciples by the way you love each other. Period.
Amen.
And I think that's all I can say to answer. Love. And to really press in to God's presence.
That's it. That's your time.
That's my time.
Chick-fil-A.
Time to go to Chick-fil-A, guys. Get the Lord's chicken. Yeah, all jokes aside, yeah, I think there's a lot to learn. And in reality, I can say a lot of things and like tell you guys about it, but I know one of the questions Sam was going to ask, but he didn't. Because we're so connected mentally and spiritually. I just know he was going to ask it because I can feel it. But he was going to ask, I'm pretty sure I can read his mind, that he was going to ask, like, why should people go on mission trips? Am I right? Like, you're going to ask that?
I was going to ask that question.
Wow. Amazing.
See, it's another miracle. But I think people should go on mission trips because, like, I think people should go on both. Local missions are very important, and domestic mission trips are very important. But I would have never. I think having an international mission trip where the comfort zone is, like I said, there is no comfort zone, really forces you to rely on God. And it forces you to experience God in a way that I've never experienced God before. And it really made me question a lot. I was like, why haven't I experienced this before? So I think for that, everyone, if it is all possible, absolutely should go. Not to Mozambique, even though my heart's in Bonnie, and I plan to go back. But I think you should go, like, anywhere in the world, just to experience God. Because something I learned at Lee, and something that's so true, is that a lot of times in America we try to put God above culture in a way that culture doesn't matter. But if you look at the Bible, God is above culture, but he works within culture. And so culture is very important too. And a lot of times in America we just look over it and we think, why should I care about culture? Why should I care about where you come from? Because I serve a God that doesn't care, and that's not true. And so something I had to learn there is I had to learn their culture, and within their culture, I found the presence of God so strong that I would never experience in America, and I know that without a shadow of a doubt. I would have never experienced it in any of the mission trips we've gone here. I would have never experienced it, I don't think, anywhere here, without having like a totally different culture, where there's so many barriers that are so around, like there's language barriers, there's political barriers, but the one barrier that was not there was spiritual. And I think you can really learn, because here in America, I learned that we know a lot about God, but something I had to question myself was, do I really know God? Like, I know a lot about God. I take a lot of theology classes, and they're hard, but I know a lot about God. But something I learned there is I learned how to really know God there. And you can't do that without, well, you can, but I don't think we will in our American culture without being forced. So, yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that with us tonight. And if y'all have any more questions or anything to ask Jayden, you can get him on Facebook Messenger, or you can see him in person, or you can text him or call him. And so, how many appreciates him sharing this with us tonight? And I just want to say, we can all stand together. I just want to say that when it comes to mission trips, this church, we're always on mission. We'll be leading mission trips and going. And we're excited. I'm so excited about mission, and I love it. It may not be a week-long mission trip, but it could be a weekend mission trip that we can go on. And so I just want to say I really appreciate Jayden. How many appreciates him?
Amen.
And I just want to let you know, Jayden, that we as a church, we support you in the ministry God has given you, and we're praying for you, and we just really thank God for you, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us tonight and share your heart. So thank you so much. And if you would, can you pray over us tonight and pray that God will apply what He's given us tonight, that we'll apply it in our lives? Thank you, Lord.